critical race theory. Why? Because it's going to be abused a lot. So let's look at it from the teacher angle. My next guest says that teachers in America are being bullied from teaching students accurate history about race. It's not just about talking too much about race, it's that she believes this is about really suppressing any talk about it. She leads one of the largest teachers' unions in this country, and she's getting ready for a major legal fight. Let's get after it. Next. Here's the thing that bothers, or should bother, about critical race theory. It's a boogeyman. It's not even taught in most K through 12 schools. But suddenly it's like the biggest thing that's going on in the country when it comes to our kids in schooling. Now, what does that tell you? Tell you that they're BS here. The critical race theory, this boogeyman, is just the new front on the culture war. That's all. The brown menace is gone. You know, they're not coming over the wall to come and take your women. Now they're coming to take your kids. They claim CRT doesn't enlighten. It spreads racism. It spreads socialism. It's just telling white kids that everything you do is somehow given to you and you're worthless and that you have to be to blame for all the bad things. It's none of those things. Don't fall for what you're being told. Do the homework, okay? It isn't about an intellectual theory. That's not their fight. Their fight is about a power theory, okay? Now, what critical race theory is really about is just choosing which stories matter in the teaching of the history of America. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo gave up the goods on what this is really about for the Trumpers. He tweeted, "If we teach that the founding of the United States of America was somehow flawed, it was corrupt, it was racist, that's really dangerous. It strikes at the very foundations of our country." This guy is supposed to be a genius. He was at the top of his class at West Point. You can teach that America, her birth, her independence, her fight, her foundation was part of the most notable and exceptional experiment in democracy on the face of this planet. Comma, and there have been problems all along, and racism is a primary one. Both of those things can be said. Both are true. And he knows it. This is fake outrage, but it's having real impact on school districts across the country. And it may have a chilling effect on what our kids get to learn about who we are and how we got here and why things are not perfect here and why we are trying to promote a more perfect union. Parents against parents, student against student, teachers in danger of getting punished for what they teach in their classrooms. States all across the country are taking up bills to ban critical race theory. What does this mean? Let's discuss with the president of the American Federation of Teachers, Randi Weingarten. Good to see you, Randi.
Good to be with you, Chris.
Let's deal with the argument, and then we'll go to the remedy. The argument. You are teaching about the oppression of black people in this country, but you're using it as a cudgel. Mike Pompeo is saying you want to say that this country basically stinks and blame white people, and this is the left's effort to make a minority into a majority because you want them all to vote for you guys so you can stay in power.
You know, I mean...
That's what you're hearing. I mean, and you're going to hear it more and more, so what's the answer?
Right. So the answer is it's completely not true. I mean... I'm a high school social studies teacher. It's hard to actually fight against something that's completely not true, because then you're assuming something in evidence that's not true. So let me go through what is true, which is that for the last, I don't know, as long as I've been teaching, we teach history in a way where you take salient pieces of American history and you look at them and you examine them to have your kids be able to know the facts and to think through what that means. So when it comes to issues of American history, we teach about the founding and how great it was to actually break from Great Britain and have a democracy, and how important the Constitution was, one of the first constitutional democracies. But it wasn't a multi-ethnic democracy. The founders basically were very focused on making sure that white men of certain ways had a vote. But this is what's great about America and what we teach in history, that the arc of the moral universe has actually bent towards justice. And that whereas the founders actually were slaveholders, we went through a civil war, we went through the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, we've just got to celebrating Juneteenth. And so you see that through the struggle of America, we create more opportunity, more freedom. What I don't get is that that's a great story for Fox TV. That's a great story for all Americans. And what's happening now is that in this push to try to erase what has happened in our history, it is chilling teachers from teaching the fact that we did have slavery. It was uncomfortable. We need to get through it. We need kids to be able to critically think about it and to engage and understand it and get better as a result of it. It is the American experiment that we are trying to teach as school teachers, both the good and the ugly, but the change that we've seen, including having our first African-American president and our first African-American vice president.
So you see these bills, 5 states, Arkansas, Tennessee, Texas, bans on critical race theory, related topics as well. Now that's the dangerous part, because critical race theory as is not really taught at the primary, secondary level. But if you have a dozen other states pushing for similar legislation, what is your fear, these laws, what they will do, and what is your remedy?
Okay, so number one, the fear is take what's happening. So number one, it's like a modern day Scopes trial. It's like the modern day version of stopping us from teaching biology and evolution. What the fear is that teachers will be so bullied and so disparaged, we've seen that already, and threatened, that they'll stop teaching about the Civil War, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, anything to do with the issues around race, discrimination, bigotry, and things like that. And that will be terrible for kids to not understand history and how we actually move to be a more perfect union.
What's the remedy?
The remedy is that, number one, as a union, we have a legal defense fund that we've now put some more money in, and we're going to fight to defend every one of our members who teach honest history. But the other remedy is this. We're going to the courts, like take the Texas law. It basically says, I don't have the exact language, but it basically says that you can only teach slavery as if it was a deviation from the founders. Now, that's completely the opposite of our professional responsibility and our standards that says we have to teach honest history. So in Texas, we're going to go to the courts and say, well, can we or can't we teach the Civil War? Can we or can't we teach the Dred Scott decision, the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment, Juneteenth, the new national holiday? So we're going to do those things. But the other thing we're doing, Chris, is we're actually explaining to parents what we're really doing. And really, truly, we want to get kids back into school in August and September in a welcoming and safe environment where we really start actually bringing community back together, because I think that's the real issue here. People have gone through such terrible agita because of COVID that there is a sense of chaos and consternation that these culture warriors are seizing on. And what we need to do is bring people back together, our community, our education community, and do it in a welcoming and safe environment where all kids can thrive.
Well, I look forward to the kids being back in school in person, that is for sure. Randi Weingarten, thank you for coming on to make the case.
Thank you.